I want to pivot now, though, to our quick offseason discussion. Speaking of young players trying to make a name for themselves, there's a young player in the NBA, just 22 years of age, that has a reputation thus far throughout his career as being an empty stats contributor, a loser, to use a harsher term. Collin Sexton of the Cleveland Cavaliers is on the trade market, according to numerous reports, and Shams Charania of The Athletic reported yesterday that the Knicks of New York are his most aggressive suitor via trade. I want to know what you guys think about Sexton's fit on the team. The rumored package was Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, and a first-round pick in this year's draft from New York. What do you guys think about that deal? I know Mike is a Cavaliers fan and has a take. And what would you guys think of Sexton joining the Knickerbockers here in New York City?
Yeah, I'll go first before I let Colin jump in. But I think it would be a big move for the Knicks. I think they need a scorer who can get points down the stretch, and I think Collin Sexton can do that. You look at his games against the Brooklyn Nets. I think about that 40-plus game he put up when the Big Three were first forming, and he put that Brooklyn Nets team away in OT, and he did so in a game I've never seen done before, hitting shots in OT, sending into OT, and he's that guy. And if you've watched Cavalier basketball, he can score at will. He's not great from three-point range, but he's highly effective when driving to the basket. And he's a gamer. I mean, he gives you 110%. He's a hard worker. I mean, he's averaged 4 points per game to each of his seasons, and he's had 3 years in the NBA. So he started with 16 points. He had 24 points last year, and you can only imagine what kind of jump he makes next year. And for that reason, if I'm in the Cleveland front office, I don't jump at the chance to take a 19th overall from the Knicks and Obi Toppin and Kevin Knox. I don't think that's enough for a guy like Collin Sexton, who's shown you the offensive production. And if I'm Cleveland, I would like to think RJ Barrett's the only guy in my mind that they could give me that's young enough that would equal out that deal. I mean, Collin Sexton's without a doubt a better offensive talent than RJ Barrett is. He doesn't give you the size and the defensive versatility Barrett does, but he's a better offensive playmaker, and he scores the ball like Barrett, I don't think, has shown in this past season. He's gotten better, but in the playoffs, he was very inconsistent. And I see a guy like Collin Sexton being able to do that in the playoffs, although we haven't seen it. He showed up in big games for Cleveland. So in my mind, just to get back to the point, I don't see Cleveland jumping at the opportunity for a 19th pick and 2 projects. It would need to be at least a guy like RJ Barrett or a more established player like maybe Simmons, maybe Brandon Ingram, maybe a guy like that if you go outside of the Knicks. But for me, I don't see this deal happening. Obviously, Cleveland front office may see it differently, but in my eyes, I don't see Sexton leaving for that price.
I don't think it's a deal that Cleveland should pursue, but if you're the Knicks, this is a perfect deal. I mean, numbers matter, and this guy averages 24.3 points a game. There were stretches this year where the Knicks needed those baskets. There were stretches where they couldn't score to save their lives. And, Derrick Rose helped fill those gaps, throughout the season, when there were days where Elfrid Payton couldn't drive to the hoop, couldn't shoot a three. Sexton kind of fits that offense pretty well. They like to play that ISO style of basketball. And to your point, Mike, there's days where RJ Barrett is very inconsistent. We saw that in the playoffs firsthand. Could Sexton help kind of lighten the load there and, maybe open things up for Barrett and Randall, and Noel if he's still around. And that even helps Derrick Rose, because if Sexton's eating all these minutes, when Rose does theoretically come in, he'll be rested. He'll be ready to go to score even more. I just think numbers matter. And in this case, the Knicks are a team that desperately needs scoring. And I think Sexton fits the bill here. I mean, and for the price, it's a no-brainer. Toppin doesn't really fit the offense that Thibodeau's trying to run in New York right now. And Knox hasn't really developed the way that anyone thought he would. So if I'm the Knicks, I jump at this opportunity. If I'm the Cavaliers, I seriously wouldn't do it.
Right. So to circle back to Mike's point, we were planning on discussing during this segment the news that the 76ers are seeking an all-star caliber talent in return for Ben Simmons. The league-wide perception on Collin Sexton right now would imply to me that he would not serve as the type of return that Philadelphia might be okay getting. So someone like Ingram or Simmons, that might be a bit much to ask for Sexton, especially with reports that the market for Sexton has been a late first round pick. If the Knicks' best offer is Obi and a first round pick, and it, as opposed to giving them the 32nd pick and Toppin, but not forcing them to take on Knox's salary, it seems to me that just might be the best deal Cleveland's able to get, because when you look around the league, cap space is not exactly in abundance right now. Teams that have been interested in Sexton include Miami, the Lakers, and Indiana. And I think that Indiana is the only team out of the Lakers and Heat that can offer a better package than New York. The Lakers package would, to me, be something like the 22nd pick in Kyle Kuzma. I'd rather have the 21st pick and Obi Toppin if I were Cleveland. Kyle Kuzma, $13 million a year, probably not the most appealing. Miami wouldn't give up Tyler Hero for James Harden. I doubt that they give him up for Collin Sexton. Precious Achiuwa and a 2022 first-round pick. Again, in a really deep draft class, a first-round pick in this class in the middle of the first round, and Toppin and Knox, if you trust your development staff to get something out of him, might not end up being as bad of a package as you may think. However, I do agree with both of you that Sexton would fill a need for New York, and that I'll also say I think the league-wide perception of him is too low. I think he is a very talented player. I think nowadays, with the offensive infusion into the NBA, with how it's officiated and the amount of extra points that players are able to score, allows people to think that 25 point per game scorers grow on trees, and they just don't. They just don't. Not a rare, not a common player to find sitting around on the trade market. If Cleveland doesn't want to pay him big money and you're in New York and have the cap space that many other teams don't, got to get your foot in the door and talk to them about a trade offer. To me, with the way Knicks president Leon Rose seems to operate, not sure New York will be bidding against themselves and making a really strong offer, but I also don't think the Cavaliers would agree to a deal that vastly undersells the value of Sexton. So even as a Cavs fan, Mike, even if Sexton does, walk out the door, I can agree with you that I don't think Cleveland will be letting him walk for just any old package. It would require some value that they feel is legitimate in return for him.